So just a few minutes, guys. We are going to start, but we need to wait a little bit for the latecomers. Okay. All righty. Hi, everyone. Hi. Yara, where are you from? Yara Kalmush.
I'm from Egypt.
Cool. You know, I'm from Brazil, right? And Yara is a name that we have in Brazil. It's not super common, but
it's really nice to know. I've never met anyone outside Egypt called Yara.
Really? Oh, it's there are lots of Yaras in Brazil.
That's really great. Comforting.
Yes, comforting. Very good. Okay, guys, I will wait 1 more minute before we start. We are already 70 people in the room. Just 1 more minute. So last week we did what's the book? What are the books you are reading, right? If anyone has any new suggestions about books that you are reading, you can put them on the chat. Otherwise, we are going to start. Okay, Hugo is telling me that he's here. So I don't know if you've met Hugo, but Hugo is a student at TU Delft, and he is our student assistant. So he's in charge of helping. Okay, we are 81 people in the room, so I guess we are good to start. Good evening, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'm really happy that everybody is here and that you have a lot of patience with my emails. I just sent a few minutes ago a wrong email to everyone, but I decided that I'm not going to correct it. People, as somebody said, people, I think Maggie said, people use it to get the link, and that's it. But I'm really happy you are here, because today we are going to talk about just governance. And today I am going to give the class. So I'm really looking forward to it. So this is our 4th session of the Autumn School Planning and Designing for the Just Transition. In the first session, we had just resilience with Carissa Champlin and Jose Cañizares. They talked about urban resilience. In the second week, we had Trivik Verma talking about just data and the smart city. And in session 3, Caroline Newton introduced us to the notion of just space or spatial justice. And I also talked about public goods. What I really loved about the discussion on public goods is that I presented the concept without a lot of critique. And then immediately afterwards, people started saying, well, okay, Roberto, this is not how things work in reality. And they started giving me their perspectives on the concept from their own realities, right? So before I start, I just wanted to shout out to my friends in Ethiopia who are, I can see that they are here in the room. I can see some Ethiopian names, beautiful names, but I know that Ethiopia is in a very strange situation right now. And also to my friends from Sudan, who are they got their internet back, luckily, but I hope they are all here and that they can follow the lecture. So today I'm going to talk about just governance. And without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and start my lecture. Just give me 1 second. I think you can see. Can you see my full screen now?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much. Yes, yes, yes. All right. So thanks a lot, guys. By this time, you all know me. We've been together for 4 sessions, so we are friends. So I will invite you to, whenever you want, you can write on the chat, and or you can also interrupt me and say, please, could you explain that again? I'm happy to explain. Hi, friends from Sudan. I hope you are safe and good. Okay, so we are going to talk about governance today, and I'm sure you have heard this word, but I've seen, I've noticed that a lot of people don't know what governance is very well, and that's okay. I mean, it's a little bit of a complicated subject, but let's dive into it and let's try to learn together what governance really is, right? So there are 2 ways of looking towards governance. You can look at it from a kind of idea. So it's a nice idea about how things should be governed, right? So it's a new style of governing that implies not government. So government is different from governance. We are talking about how things are governed by other actors rather than the government alone. So things like, for example, housing provision, water provision, road provision, they are governed not only by the government, they are governed by the market, they are governed by civil associations, and they are governed by all kinds of actors, right, that influence how these things are provided. But we can also look at governance from the point of view of understanding what is really going on in the world, and seeing that the world is much more complex than this. This is super complex and it's a little bit boring, but this is an organogram for a local government in Nigeria, right? So what we can see here is a typical example of government. This is how a government organizes itself into little departments and units. And, you know, there is a chairman here and a vice chairman, and you have all the little, you know, the little minions who follow the orders of the ones above. And I'm sure that this is the way that you are kind of, most people think, okay, this is how things work, right, in the world. And actually, what I'm claiming here is that this is only part of the story. This is indeed how the government of this city works in Nigeria, but you have a lot of other actors that are influencing how the city is governed and who are not part of the government, right? So it's important to understand that when I say governed, I'm not saying the government, I'm saying how things are managed or how they are steered. Another example of you know, typical government or organization is this Department of Health of the Australian government. And here you can see, you know, there is a secretary and there is a health production regulation. So there are like, you know, sections and divisions. What is a little bit different here is that all these things, they have names of people attached to them. And this is important because all these departments and you know, places where people make decisions, they need to be accountable, and they will be more accountable if the government is transparent and if we can get all the information that we need to know who takes those decisions. But I'm talking about something different today. I'm talking about how things are steered, managed, or governed besides the government. So everything that happens around it. And the notion of governance involves the relationships between civil society, the private sector, and the public sector. So we have these three big groups in society, like big clouds of stakeholders, big clouds of actors that are influencing the decisions in the city, right? And of course, it's easy for us to know the public sector. We say, well, it's the government, right? The private sector are businesses. But I'd like to ask you guys, what do you think civil society is? What do you think it is? Who is part of civil society?
Like the UN, NGOs or something?
NGOs, for sure. Political parties, very good, Jihad.
Citizens.
Citizens
and communities.
Yes, citizens and communities. Very good. So NGOs, so everybody who is not in the public sector and is not for profit is part of civil society. But I'm going to shock you a little bit, because citizens alone, we as individuals, we are not civil society. We are part of civil society, but individuals alone, citizens alone, they're not civil society. Inti is saying, well, social movements are civil society. The third sector. So I'm trying to read the chat while I speak to you. Civil society are citizens organized around an objective or a claim or a goal that they have in common. So a lot of things are civil society. Jihad said unions, that's true. Professional unions are civil society. Political parties are civil society. So that's a bit strange, right? Political parties, they should be part of the government. Well, no, because if they're not in the government, if they're just a political party, they're civil society, right? Churches and the mosques are civil society. They are a group of people around a certain objective, right? So any kind of association between people with an objective is civil society. Another interesting thing is that the public sector is not the government. When we say the government, we mean something very, it's very complex, because the government has several departments and has several levels. You have national government, you have provincial government or state government, and you have local government. And sometimes you have a neighborhood government in many places. And in other places like the European Union, you have transnational governments. So you have people, you have decisions being made beyond the nation state. So we have to be careful when we say the government, because we need to really, okay, what do we mean? So governance are the relationships between civil society, the public sector, and the private sector that happen in a kind of that happen with formal institutions. I'm going to explain that a little bit further. But we have these relationships, and they are guided by formal agreements like contracts and laws, regulations, zoning plans, master plans. All these things, they kind of shape the relationships between civil society, public sector, and the private sector. But we also have informal institutions, and I'm going to explain what that is in a few minutes. What we see in the picture is that civil society, the public sector, and the private sector, they're always like pushing and.
Abi, Dennis.
Oh, if you could please mute. There is somebody with their Ugo, if you can help me muting people who forgot to mute themselves. So I was saying these sectors of society, they're always putting pressure on one another. They're making demands, they're asking for things, or they're telling people not to do things. The public sector is saying, wow, you need to follow the law. Civil society is saying, wow, I need my rights. The private sector is saying, oh, I need less taxes. I need more incentives. And in doing this, they're putting pressure on one another and keeping each other in check. They kind of control each other. And in an ideal world, in an ideal country, these things should be a little bit in equilibrium. And this, so in an ideal world, these things should be a little bit in equilibrium, and we shouldn't have private sector that is too strong or a public sector that is too strong. But we know that in reality, in different countries, these things are more or less powerful. In China, so if I have Chinese friends here, you will help me. The public sector is the most powerful, right? In Brazil, the private sector is very powerful, and they will tell how the city should evolve. In Egypt, that's a little bit mixed, but the army is very important. So the army, I would say, is part of the public sector, right? In the Netherlands, civil society is very, very powerful. So they can stop projects, they can change the regulations and so forth. Depending on the country where you are, one of these is more powerful or not. We have two other groups of stakeholders, so to speak, that are silent. One is the planet. So the planet doesn't talk to us with words. It talks to us in other ways, right? With the climate and so on, but it doesn't talk to us with words. And another silent stakeholder are future generations, because they are not here now. So we need to imagine what they need. As I said, all these relationships happen within this framework of the rule of law. So of regulations, laws, plans, and things that are written. And the rule of law is something we are going to discuss a little bit further, but it's very different in different countries. Some countries don't have the rule of law very strong, but others do have a rule of law very strong. So what is the rule of law? The rule of law means that the law is above everybody. So no one is above the law in the rule of law. So in thesis, you could sue your government, and you could say, well, you didn't provide good health care to me, so I'm going to sue you, and I'm going to get, you're going to lose in court. It means that you can sue your government, basically, and that nobody is above the law. We know that that's not the case in many places, right? Apart from that, as I said before, there are what we call informal institutions. Informal institutions are ways of doing things and cultural attitudes that are not written. So they are not formalized. They are not part of the law. They're just a way that people do things because they do things like that in that country. And we can't formalize them, because then they would become laws, right? But they are not. They're just ways of doing things. And I know it's a strange idea, like how can an institution be informal? But actually we have lots and lots and lots of informal institutions, ways of doing things that are there that everybody follows, but they're not written. Let's go forward. Let's have a look at what formal institutions are. Property rights, contracts, development rights, building codes, quality and standard of buildings, for example, streets and plot cadastres, and so on. So all these things are part of formal institutions that help us govern the city. For example, We have contracts between private sector and the public sector and civil society. The private sector is bound to follow development rights, for example, or building codes and so on. So we have these relationships being guided by these formal institutions. And as I said, I wanted to discuss a little bit the rule of law, because in every country that's a little bit different, right? And in some countries, there are people who are above the law and who never get sued for anything, right? We know that, but in principle, the law should be for everyone. Okay, so far so good, guys. Are you following what governance is? Yes, I see nodding faces. Very good.
Yes.
But what if I told you that there is not one form of governance? There are several forms of governance. One of them is hierarchic governance, which is those organograms I showed in the beginning. They are very hierarchical, right? You have a boss, and then you have all the people below that follow that boss. So that's a top-down kind of governance. And that happens in many places. That's how things work in many places. There is something else called networked governance, which is a style of government and of the affairs of the city that is a little bit more networked. And there is not so much hierarchy, but different sources of power and different sources of decision-making that are kind of crisscrossing each other. And we have something called, in capitalism, by the way, we have something called market governance, which is how the market works. The market has its own laws, so to speak, right? We know that there is the law of demand and other laws that govern the market. Well, hierarchical governance is based on rules, and it's common in Germany and Eastern Europe and in most countries around the Mediterranean and in Africa. That's the kind of governance that is more common in these places. Networked governance is based on partnerships between all these people in society. It's common here in Northern Europe. It's a little bit more common in Europe. And the market governance is also something that we all have in our countries. It's very common in the UK and Ireland and so on. Hierarchical governance is about giving information. Network governance is about dialogue. And market governance is about marketing campaigns. Dependency, independency, and interdependency. I don't know about you guys, but my students at TU Delft, they think that hierarchical governance is bad, market governance is bad, but we need to put up with it, and network governance is good. So network governance means that, you know, decisions are taken by different groups of people. But in reality, that's not so simple. We need the three of them happening at the same time for things to work. Now that we are having a lot of problems with the climate, with having climate change and climate emergency, maybe we need a little bit of hierarchical governance, because we need leadership and we need, you know, some top-down decision making. So what my students think is that everything that is top-down is bad and everything that's bottom-up is good. But what I'm trying to tell you is that that's not that simple. We need a little bit of top-down and we need bottom-up. What happens is that in most of our countries here present, we don't have a lot of bottom-up. So people think, oh, we need bottom-up, and they're right. But we also need a little bit of top-down. Somebody is saying, like with the pandemic. Indeed, with the pandemic, it became clear that we need clear leadership, and, you know, people telling other people what to do, wear masks, get a vaccine, and so on. What this guy is saying, Möllerman, is that you need the three types to have a good society. Well, I'm not going to explain this slide because I'm going to send you this presentation. Well, this presentation will be in the folder to which everyone has access, so you can see the differences. Let's have a look at what I mean by governance of a small part of London. So London is a very big city, right? It's enormous, but the city of London is actually a little neighborhood, a little borough of London that is 1.2 square miles in extension. So it's very small. This is where London started. This is where the Romans had, the Romans, they had a city called Londinium, which was the ancestor of London. And this is where Londinium was actually. So this is very historical core of London. And this is a very important part of London because a lot of bank headquarters are there. So it's incredibly important, this small part of the city. Let's see how it's governed. They have wards, so that small part of London is subdivided in wards, who elects the members of the Court of Commons that will govern the city. They have the City of London Corporation, which is the whole borough. So the whole little thing is governed by this corporation. This corporation is part of the Greater London Authority, which is the big London, right? The Greater London Authority is part of the English regions. The English regions are part of England. England is part of the United Kingdom. And this slide is old, so you will forgive me. This is when the United Kingdom was part of the European Union. Yes, I know, right? What I want to explain with this slide is that all these levels of government make decisions that impact the city of London. That small part of London is impacted by all these scales of decision making and by lots and lots of stakeholders. So England is a wonderful democracy. It's really, 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 one of the first democracies we had in the world. And they have a lot of old customs and things that they do for many, many centuries already. But the decision making in this super small part of London is composed by a court of aldermen, then a Lord Mayor and 2 sheriffs, and the Court of Commons that we saw in the last slide. And the Court of Commons has 121 committees in 2012 and 72 outside bodies. So when I say that decision-making is networked, that's what I mean. A lot of people are taking decisions for this part of London, right? I'm not going to go too much into it because it's really super interesting, but super complicated. It's up to you to imagine how your city is governed, by which authorities, by which parts of the government, but also how the private sector and the private and the public sector interact. So how the private sector, the public sector, and civil society interact when they are governing the city. Yara, you raised your hand?
Yes, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I think 2 or 3 slides before this slide in the market governance, I quite don't understand. So the decisions made in the country based on the market and the market laws, or it's just that the market as a market and as an economy or in an economy aspect, it has its own laws?
Yeah, the market has its own rules, but the rules of the market influence the decision making of the city, right? How can I explain it a little bit better? So where are you from?
Egypt.
Egypt, okay. Egypt has an economic policy, so it is related to the rates rates of interest and interest rates. Sorry.
Yeah.
That will define how banks will loan money to people, who has access to loans from banks,
Yeah.
which companies can get, and that is a completely different, and it's not exactly part of the government. You see?
Yeah, but it's just a part of it. But like the important decisions in the country is not made by the market, right? It's just part of the participants.
Well, I don't know. Depends. I think the market actually makes a lot of very important decisions in every country.
Okay,
No?
I see. Yeah, that's my question. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the market. So I can see people are a bit anxious about the attendance form, but I'm sorry, guys. I will share the attendance form later, if you don't mind, because if you are here, you will be here until at least the middle of the session, right? So there is no hurry. So the market influences decision making. Carla is saying, yes, Carla is absolutely right. Salma is saying, my city in India is governed in a very similar manner because of colonialism, but it is no way as progressed as London. Well, yes, that is one of the bad sides of colonial heritage, is that they left us with a lot of institutions that are not really fit to our own realities, right? So far, so good, guys. Okay, so you can have a look at this slide later on, and you can see other information about governance of London. But how to use governance in your project? If you are doing project, if you can, if you are designing something or thinking about something for the city, you have to answer the question, who does what when? This is the key question, that you need to know who are the actors and stakeholders of the project and what are they going to do in your project. And as you know, the government is only part of those actors. You have to think of the businesses, and you have to think of civil society. Very, very much. Civil society is super important. Who supports and who opposes your project? That's another very important thing you need to decide. Well, I think everybody knows SWOT analysis. So the strength, how to measure the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a project. And you know that the SWOT analysis is divided into positive and negative aspects, but also into internal problems or internal challenges, strengths and weaknesses of the project that are internal and are happening now. And you can also think of the opportunities and threats as external to the project or in the future, right? I hope everybody knows this exercise a little bit. It's very, very useful, and it's useful to make these distinctions, things that are internal to your project and things that are external to your project and can happen in the future, for example. So just to make sure you understand, opportunities and threats are external to the project. They influence the project, but they are not inside the project, and they can also happen in the future, right? But another thing that is super important for us to know, and I have realized that not a lot of people use this, is the power interest matrix, in which we can try to map the stakeholders in our projects and try to understand their role, so who does what when, based on this understanding of how much power they have and how much interest they have in the project. And in order to do that, you can divide the matrix in 4 quadrants, and you then start to classify your stakeholders if they have little power and little interest, well, maybe you don't have to waste a lot of time with them. They don't have a lot of power. They don't have a lot of interest. So, well, let's just monitor them and see what they do. But if they have lots of power and little interest, maybe you have to engage and attract them. If they have a lot of power and a lot of interest, well, they're key. They're the key actors of your project. So you have to manage them closely, cater for their needs, and so on. However, citizens are generally in the quadrant on the left, on the right, sorry. They have little power, but they do have a lot of interest. What do we do with them? We empower them. So civil society in most countries here represented is not very active or is not very powerful and is generally silenced. I'm talking about associations of citizens, right? And in general, they have a lot of interest in projects, but they have very little power. And the role of good planners and designers and architects is to find ways to empower those stakeholders, right? Any questions so far? Okay, I want to finish this with just a little reminder that when we are talking about planning and design and so on, we need to understand that different countries have very, very different planning systems and planning mentalities and planning ways, right? So we have basically 4 types. One type is based on policy. So we have performance criteria and decision rules, and everything is kind of codified in master plans, for example. But these master plans, they're not physical. They're more like rules and regulations. We have another style that is more based on strategies to coordinate spatial impacts of public policy. We have another type that is incentive by investment in hard and soft infrastructure. This is very common in Africa, but also in China. China had a lot of economic investment planning, right? And finally, we have a very, very common way of doing planning that is based on zoning and urban design, generally related to urbanism. And this is really about zoning plans and urban design exercises in the city. So my question to you is, what type of planning is more common in your country?
Please repeat one more time. What is in my country?
What type of planning is common in your country?
Common spatial planning at the national level, urban planning.
Yeah, but based on my so you're in Serbia, right? What kind of planning?
Yes, we have strategic and zoning from here. What can I see from your table?
Okay, cool.
Strategic and zoning.
Okay, so what about in Egypt? In Kenya, we have a lot of, yeah?
Sorry, I guess economic investment here in Egypt lately, in my point of view.
Yeah, with big projects, right? Isn't
Yeah.
it? Lots of big projects. Which, if I may, Yara, you know Egyptian planning much better than I do, but Egypt lacks strategies. So there are lots of big projects, but without a strategy.
Yeah, that's really true. Strategy and design, like combination of them. Even engineers here and planners, if there's someone who can really design a plan very well according to rules and strategy and function, the context and environment doesn't allow them, or their boss, the company, whatever, the environment work that he works under doesn't allow him to do what's right. So like
I understand.
he's forced to go with the flow, like they say.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's interesting, but maybe we should work on having more strategy, right? Esther is saying, let me read a few more. Zoning in Sudan, economic investment in Ghana, policy in Mexico. So we know that in Mexico there are lots of master plans, right, that are like policy oriented. Emmanuel, I don't know where you're from. In Iran, it's mostly economic investment, hardly zoning in Pakistan. Look, actually, zoning is the most common one. It's the one that most countries have. Ana Hayone, do you want to talk a little bit about Spain, how it went from policy to strategy?
I would say that, well, actually you were talking about zoning right now, and I think that was a very common, the common planning system for many, many years. But lately, it's more on policy, like giving guidelines, and there is a bit more freedom, even though there are some very strict rules for like building height and the styles of the facade and this kind of thing. Yeah, but there is this strategy behind, like, for example, with the SDGs, there is now, for example, I live in the Basque Country, there is a lot around circular economy and making cities more sustainable. So there is like underlying strategy, or like an umbrella strategy, where the new policies and projects should follow this kind of strategy, even though some aspects are fixed.
I think
it's
one
like
thing
a cool.
Yeah, I think what happened also in Spain is that we had very good experiences of strategy with Barcelona and Bilbao, like putting the strategy first. And what is a strategy? A strategy is having a vision about the future and mapping out what are the steps you need to take to get to that vision, right? And each step involves physical interventions, projects, and so on. Zoning is not set in stone, people are saying. Well, zoning is the most common, right? It's very common in the Mediterranean. It's kind of the easiest thing you have in planning. India, indeed, policy and economic investment, that's true. And so it's very varied, right? But I'm in the Netherlands, I'm going to tell you. In the Netherlands, we have a lot of strategy. So it's a country based on strategy. We have policy and we have a little bit of zoning. We have the UK with a lot of policy and little strategy. We have France, that strategy, zoning, and economic investment. Italy, more or less the same. China, a lot of economic investment, now going to strategy, and so on. So each country is very different. But what's happening in the global south? Somebody already said, oh, you know, the Brits, they came here and they left this planning system, and what do we do with it? It doesn't really fit our reality, right? And there are lots of informal institutions also operating. So let's have a look at what informal institutions are, and then I will finish my lecture. The unwritten rules of the game, informal ways of doing things, ingrained worldviews, cultural attitudes that determine how we relate with each other, with the state, with the law, and with the market. I forgot to write the market here. For example, in the Netherlands, we have what we call the Polder Model. What's the Polder Model? So this is the Netherlands, right? It's this country laying very low. It's called the lowlands. And in order to inhabit here, you have to dig polders. What is a polder? It's a piece of land that you create by digging a canal around it, and then the water table goes down, and you have land. But in order to do that, you have to have a lot of agreement between people, because you cannot have a polder on its own. it only works if you have a system of polders. Otherwise, it doesn't work at all because the water has to go somewhere, right? And in order for your polder to work, it needs to be connected to the other polder. So that's very interesting because that created this societal model that we call Polder Model. It's a societal model based on consensus seeking and shared visions for a desirable future, born from the urgency to organize life in this land. If you don't have those things, it's very difficult to live here because you need to agree with your neighbor. Of course, people don't do that anymore. We are not digging so many polders anymore, but the kind of culture stayed. So in the Netherlands, we have collective action, consensus seeking, and a lot of faith in the institutions and in the government. And I know this sounds like shocking to you because who has faith in the government, right? But actually, when you pay taxes and the taxes are well used and you have a good country, then the faith in the government and institutions goes up. So that's the case in the north of Europe. People have a lot of faith in the government, but also in institutions, right? Okay. We have other kinds of informal institutions that are in other countries that are sometimes positive and sometimes negative. Why aren't you considering zoning as a policy? Because zoning is its own policy. It is a policy, of course, but zoning is its own thing almost. And when I talk about policy, I'm talking about other kinds of policy, of incentive, of other kinds of policy. Zoning is a very physical thing. It controls how the physical environment will be built. But there are, when I'm talking about policy, I'm talking about economic investment, talking about other things. Okay, I don't think zoning is enough, Jeddah, for sure. Zoning is the most common, but it's not enough. I personally think that we need strategies. Okay, let's have a look at other examples of informal institutions so you can understand what I mean.
Roberto, may I ask you
Yes.
something?
Yes.
When we're talking about strategic planning, don't we consider it all levels of planning plans actually as strategic? I mean, as strategic in the way that we are talking about them with a strategic character.
I don't
they
know.
have
I don't
strategic
think
character?
so. A lot of our countries, they don't have any strategy. Like I was saying, and I'm sorry to single out Egypt. Egypt is actually quite a common situation in which our governments, they plan the city through projects. The projects, they need to be built in 4 years, you know, they need to be visible, and they will attract votes. And but they are not connected to a vision of the future and a way to get there. I think most policy and projects are not connected to that vision, and therefore don't have this strategic value. I think we need to discuss what strategy. I can tell you what I think, but I don't think all policy and all planning is strategic at all. I think a lot of things are just, yeah, I think we need a bridge there. Let's build a bridge. Yes, a bridge will solve the traffic problem, but this bridge is not connected to a larger vision. Okay, let me explain other forms of informal institutions so you can tell me what informal institutions are in your country. Are there any Italians here? Let's see. So Omerta, yes. You can tell me if I'm wrong. Omerta is a form of informal institution that is more common in the south of Italy, and it implies an extreme form of loyalty and solidarity in the face of authority. So it's a little bit like, I don't like authority, but I will protect my clan. So Omerta is something that the mafia uses a lot. It's not a written rule, right? It's not a law. It's just a way that people do things. So Italians, tell me if I'm wrong. It's based on blind loyalty to the family or the clan, a distrust of state authority. And it's also kind of a, toxic masculinity affirmation. So you have to be a macho to be part of this kind of institution. Minga is something that they have in Ecuador, and it is about a community action to tackle problems of the community. It's based on collective local action, mutual trust, goodwill, and sharing. So that's very nice institution, isn't it? But it's not codified. There is no law. People just do it, right? Another informal institution is the Jeitinho from Brazil. And Jeitinho is, it means the little way of doing things, and it means finding a way to accomplish something by circumventing or bending the rules or social conventions. So you find a way to do it informally. It means low regard for formal rules, subservience to authority, pragmatic opportunism, improvisation in face of lack of resources. So these informal institutions, they also influence how cities work. You may think, and I'm sure you all learned, okay, we have a master plan and these are the planning rules and this is how things happen. But is it how things happen really in reality, or are we kind of... for example, in Africa, we have lots of traditional ways of land tenure and ownership that are not written laws. Someone from Africa, and I know, by the way, I hate when people say Africa as if it is like it's a lot of countries that are very different from each other. But there are some countries in Africa that have traditional ways of land tenure. Can anyone explain to me or give an example?
I can give an example from my tribe.
Yes.
So like what would
Edgar?
happen is, yeah, Edgar from in Tanzania. I'm from Kagera. My parents are originally from Kagera. So what would happen is the father, I don't know how far back this went, but the father of let's say a father of a household would have a land. And then once a son, for example, marries or reaches a certain age, you divide the land and you plant a certain tree.
Yeah.
And so that tree that you plant, if you go anywhere in that village and you see that tree, it shows that this is the border of this person's plot. So that's the subdivision. There's no government involved. There is no, it's completely within the cultural system. So it's something that is completely recognized by the people, even though it might not be listed as planned or zoned out area, but the people who live there all know, like, this is the border, this is this person's land, it starts from here and ends there, because of the system that exists.
That's very nice example. So what happened with colonization? Colonization was like this, it comes and it says, oh, this is not good enough, this is primitive, I don't like it, let's have a British planning system here in this country, right? And what happens is that this doesn't match with the culture. And I think the way that Edgar just explained is a much more humane way of demarcating the land than we have. So Esther, do you want to talk about Kenya?
Hi, yeah, it's basically the same thing where boundaries are not very strict, I guess. And yeah, between families they might be a bit more clear, but within a family it's passed down from a father to the sons. Women can't inherit land, and the father decides how much a piece will be for each of the sons. And yeah, it's basically pretty arbitrary. There's no law that governs it other than the father's authority over his children.
Well, that's interesting because it makes me think, and it reminds me to tell you that traditional ways are not always the best. Sometimes they are a problem. And traditional ways, they can be a little bit, how can I put it in a polite way? They can be skewed against women as well. So that's a little bit of a problem. However, we should pay attention to the traditional ways that people use and try to understand why they use it like this, and try to understand, okay, well, maybe we should try to adapt the planning system to these ways, or bring some elements of traditional planning to modern planning. The idea that European planning is the best and we should implement it everywhere like that is wrong. And I think my invitation to you is to think, okay, what planning ways are more connected to the place where I live, and to the customs and informal institutions of my country. And maybe a lot of ideas from Western planning are okay, they're kind of good, let's follow them, but not all of them. And it's important to be really critical and to try to bring things to your own reality. One problem, I think, in places like India and Egypt, and even Brazil is a little bit different, but I will talk about that later, is that they have inherited planning systems that are not really very good for that reality. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, guys, this is the end of my lecture. We have been here for 1 hour, so that's enough, right? But I'm going to give you a 3-minute break, and then we come back for the exercise, and and I'll finally share the presence list, okay, so that people are happy and they can put their names there. I will put my presentation in the folder, and you can look at it later. You can see the resources and sources. Okay, so 3 minutes. I'll see you in 3 minutes. See you. Bye bye. Thanks, Nadine. That's very nice of you to say that. I try to make my presentations beautiful. Oh, okay. The presentation from last week is not in the yeah. I have a Mac, and Mac has Keynote. Oh, I realize you cannot see me. Mac has this app called Keynote. It's a little bit better. It's better than PowerPoint. So I have all these super nice like transitions and so on. But you can do very nice presentations on PowerPoint as well. Hugo, are you there? I can't see him.
Yes. Tell me.
How's the weather in Rio?
Reaching 30 degrees.
30 degrees? Ah, I am
yeah, very humid and and hot as always.
We have to ask Caroline for her presentation. Could you write to her and ask for her presentation?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, we had 3 minutes. That was the time to go to the blue. That's fine if you missed only one session. That's fine. I will explain a little bit later how this is going to go. Guys, so actually, you have to be present in 4 sessions, and you have to deliver the final assignment. And the final assignment, I'm going to send it to you via email. But I can tell you already what it is, and you can tell me if it's feasible for you. Generally, we do that with our students from Africa, and it has worked in the past. With your phone, or you can make a little video explaining a problem of your city. So you can use the knowledge that you have gained in this course and make a little video with your phone of 3 minutes explaining a challenge or an opportunity, could be, or a beautiful project that you think, something that that you can tell us about your city, and use some of the knowledge of the course when you are explaining it. If you can't use your phone for some reason, that's fine, don't worry. We will give you the opportunity to do the same thing, but with a text that you have to write in 1 A4, right? You can do that if you can't record with your phone. Otherwise, but you don't have to worry. I will explain exactly how to do it, everything I'll send you a document with the assignment. So in order to have the certificate, you have to have been to 4 lectures, and you have to deliver the final assignment, which I think is fair, right? I mean, I don't think we are asking too much. We are really working very hard for this, so I think it's okay. Any questions and about the presentation? And otherwise, I will just start the exercise. And if you cannot participate in the exercise, don't worry, that's fine. But because there will be anyway, there will be a talk that there's going to be a debate. But if you have a phone with you, you can go to this website called .. menti.com and use this code. I'm putting it on the chat as well. Bube, I was not talking about Africa when I said that, right? Sometimes informal institutions around the world, they're not very women friendly. And I think it's our duty to empower women so that they can plan cities that are good for women as well, and not only for men. I hope so. Times have changed. I hope they have. Michelle, Michelle Nagawa, where are you from?
Hi, Roberto. I'm from Uganda.
So you think that women are not, they are empowered in Uganda?
Well, it will depend. I just think that there's been more opportunity for women to actually exercise their knowledge, skills, and recently we have an urban planner who is a doctor at one of our biggest institutions, Macquarie University, and she actually designed pathways to ease the traffic. It's very bad. Yeah, it's too bad. I don't know whether we are buying more cars and we have narrower roads, but she did something that can be good for pedestrians to have safety on the road. And, you know, that's something that a woman is doing, and many others are doing great stuff out there. So it's just that we need to stop.
You know what? I have a student from Uganda. Her name is Priscilla, and she's a genius. Oh my God, she's one of the best students I've ever had. Nice. So I totally believe you.
Yeah, maybe so I mean, it's applicability. They are knowledgeable. We just need to find the avenue to maybe exercise our thoughts, and it's happening at least. But you need to actually work hard.
I hope you're right. I think there are places in the world where it's still quite challenging, but oh my God, I can't read Cyrillic. Will any type of master plan be an example of zoning? Generally, a lot of master plans have zoning in them, but master plans are a little bit more encompassing, right? But they are generally, master plans are an example of urbanism, which is based on urban design and zoning. So that's why I gave that example. Okay, guys, let's start our exercise. I hope everybody's there. What is your dream? To work as a self-employed person, to work in the public sector, in the government, to work in a civic organization, not for profit? What would you like to do?
Do we answer these questions as we're like on the thing, as we're going?
Yes, on the thing, on the website.
Excuse me, the website, the code is not working. At least it's not working for me. So I don't know if something is wrong.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, that's funny. Can you have a look? Maybe the code changed. It changes.
Yeah, same here. Same here. The code is also not working.
823020. Can you try?
With no space.
No space.
Try again now, guys.
Because the code changes sometimes.
It doesn't allow me to write any letters, only numbers I can put in. So I don't know what's happening here. I'll try again.
No, but you have to choose in options now, I think.
Okay.
So once you are in the website, you have to choose an option.
Okay.
So I suggest you resend the link.
Okay.
It's already there.
Look, menti.com.
I suggest you resend.
Yeah, it's.
Okay, I got in. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Well, 87 people already responded, so we are starting to have some results. Oh, I'm really surprised. 32% of people want to be in academia. That's amazing. Generally, it's very low. 22% self-employed, so you want to have your own business. 11% want to work in the public sector. 15% would not mind, for example, being an employee of a company, and 18% want to work in a civic organization. I'm really, really surprised that you guys want to be in academia, and I'm very happy, actually. We need good people in academia. You don't need the code if you use the link. Academia rules. Yeah, Yara, I wasn't used. All right. So the academics, why do you want to work in academia? Any? No, suddenly everybody's silent.
The most beautiful job in the world. When you can spread the knowledge behind the young people and the youth, I think that's really amazing.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
I have just a slight question. So
it's difficult to work in academic sector.
What?
You have to be. It's difficult to work in academic sector. You have to be up to date to everything related to your branch, because you want to provide what's the new information to this. I mean, at least to the students.
Yeah, you have to study all the time.
Like not working as a researcher. I'm working as a. Yeah, you have to study all the time to provide what's the new, what's like up-to-date information related to your subject.
Exactly, but that's great, right? You have to study.
So it's great, yeah, but it's great to whom have the motive.
Okay, like, you have to be driven. You have to have.
So you have to be driven. Yeah, it's more than like thinking about money or thinking about position. It's thinking about the motive. It's
okay.
Like
so it's not for people.
For
it's
like
not for people who want
own.
to. It's not for people who want to have a lot of money, right? Oh my God.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how to read Cyrillic, so
it's okay. It's okay. I just wanted to say that you can find the PhD position. It's already has like a topic, and you can go and work on that topic, and you can not be only driven by something, but you can do your PhD as a research position, and the research topic is chosen by somebody else, and that's totally okay.
Not always. I have to.
Not always, but a lot of PhDs in Northern Europe are done by this method. Not always, but.
How do you pronounce your name? Sorry.
Karen.
Karen. Yeah. There are lots of PhD positions where you propose your topic. Anna, who is here, she is. I'm her second supervisor, but I think she proposed her topic. No.
No, because I'm with a grant, so they gave me the general topic, but I had the possibility to narrow it down. So it's like a mix. Yeah.
Okay, very
it's
good.
Not 100% my choice, but I had a chance to.
But you like your topic?
Of course, I like it. Yeah. That would be a torture, not liking your topic.
Yes. Well, guys, there are lots of people who want to go into academia. That's amazing. Of course, I can understand you want to be self-employed. You want to have your own office, be a designer, etc. For those who want to work for nonprofits, that's amazing because you can be a social entrepreneur. You can be a community leader. You can be the leader of an NGO. It's not-for-profit doesn't mean that you are in poverty, right? You make money even in not-for-profit. I think a lot of people should work for the public sector. We need planners working in the government, guys. So think about it. Michelle wants to empower communities. Very good. Let's go to our next question. Who are your heroes? I want to know. Who are the people you look up to and you think this person inspires me? I want to be like that person. I want to be like him or her. And it doesn't have to be an architect. It doesn't have to be, it could be anybody. Can you give me 3 names? So you can put 3 names here. Let's see who. Jane Jacobs. Oh, the first name. I'm very happy about that. I hope everybody, it's the same link. It's in the same, you just continue in the same thing. Oprah Winfrey. Come on. Steve Jobs. Eric Dankwa. I don't know who he is. You have to explain to me. thanks. I see my name there. That's very funny. I'm not your hero. You can have other heroes. Oh my God, no, don't put my name. Michelle Obama. Oh, I think that's Michelle Obama is just amazing, isn't she? Maria Vasilako. Kate Raworth, the woman who invented the donut economy. Pascual Maragall. Who is that person?
Yeah, like he was the former mayor of Barcelona, like for 15 years, and he brought the Olympic Games, and like he built like the base of the new Barcelona, let's say.
Yeah, he has a lot of vision, and he practically invented strategic planning, based on a lot of good design.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody said Jane Goodall. Oh my God, she's amazing. The woman who takes care of the chimpanzees and gorillas, right? Of Steve Jobs, very good. Alejandro Aravena, Zaha Hadid, young girl. So the usual suspects, David Harvey. David Harvey is a British geographer and Marxist thinker. Elon Musk. Elon Musk. I don't know about Elon Musk, guys. I think he's a genius, but he doesn't have a lot of ethical understanding of things. My mother, my parents, my brother, Zaha Hadid. Zaha Hadid, famous Iraqi born British-based architect who died a few years ago. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, do you know who she is? A former judge in the United States who was a fighter for women's rights. Nelson Mandela, come on, guys. I think Nelson Mandela could be bigger. All right, that's interesting. Álvaro Siza, Portuguese architect. The thing is, I avoid talking about the people I don't know because I don't want to say I'm ignorant. But who is Anna Herringer?
Well, she's a German architect, but she has worked in Bangladesh and actually worked with mud and like literally took mud into the mainstream architecture. So she talks about sustainable architecture, even though I did not write about Anna Herringer, maybe the person who wrote about her should talk. But she has taken mud and sustainable architecture and architecture close to earth to mainstream.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've seen some talks of her, and she actually works with vernacular architecture, not just with mud. She goes into the techniques of that community. I didn't wrote her name, by the way, but she's amazing. She is.
Okay.
Actually, I wrote her name, and it was because this quote that she uses all the time. She says that we are ignoring one force and one energy that is always the greenest, and that's people. And using that people, that local community for their own architecture is the main feature, is the main aspect that we should think of.
Cool. Wow, that's amazing. Oh, wow, that's incredible.
What's her name again? Sorry.
Sorry?
What's her name?
Anna Herringer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just to write it in the chat. Young girl, everybody knows. Peter Zumthor, I think everybody knows. He's what is he? Is he German or Swiss? Swiss architect. Nelson Mandela is growing. Well, if I had to write a name, my name is Nelson Mandela, I have to tell you. I think the man was a genius. Okay, well, I think we have quite a few names here. IPCC, oh, that's very interesting. We have a few political names. So we have a few names of political figures, some of whom are quite divisive. So I'm not going to dwell on that so much. I think Elon Musk is a little bit of a problem, guys. You have to look at his societal, how he deals with society. It's a little bit I have my doubts. But okay, very good. We have quite a lot of good heroes. Let's go further. So here, I'm sorry. There are lots of Americans in this list, but that's what it is. Sorry. Who would you rather have lunch with? So you can choose 3 people. Che Guevara. Che Guevara, Argentinian revolutionary and leader of the Cuban Revolution. Mark Zuckerberg, our dear Mark from Facebook. Steve Jobs from Apple. Does everybody know who AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, is? She is representative in the United States. She was one of the sponsors of the Green Deal, the new Green Deal. Greta Thunberg, Martin Luther King, American civil rights leader, our dear Ellen, who's going to take everybody to Mars. Jane Jacobs, still very popular. I think maybe you guys don't know Colin Kaepernick very well. He's not so known, but he's a former football player, American football player, right? Who is now an activist for the rights, for human rights in the United States. If you don't know who Marie Curie was, you should know, because she was one of the, she was the Einstein of her time. She was amazingly intelligent. And in Europe, she's really very revered. All right, that's funny. So Mark and Colin are not very popular. I think Mark is, Facebook is evil, guys. Facebook is horrible. I use Facebook, but I shouldn't. All right, our dear Jane Jacobs, for those who don't know, she is the author of several books. I know you guys know The Death and Life of the American Metropolis, but she has other books that are even more interesting, like The Economy of Cities and so on. She is really somebody you should definitely read, and so on. Well, I'm happy Greta is not, many people don't like Greta Thunberg because they think she's annoying. I think she's very intelligent. Okay, very good. 100 people have answered this. That's a wonderful. Rank the following values for the built environment. So I know all of these are important. I'm not disputing that, but maybe I want to know what's your priority. What priority would you give to these things? And I know they are all interrelated. She won 2 Nobel Prizes. Yeah, Marie Curie, right? She won 2 Nobel. Who wins 2 Nobel Prizes, for God's sake? Not everybody is going to Mars. I don't think only billionaires are going to Mars. I know, right? My lunch date was a little bit Western oriented, I have to say. You have to tell me names of African and Asian heroes so that I can include them in the lunch. And Latin American hero. Oh, well, I had some Latin American heroes. Radioactive, yeah. Well, for those who don't know, Marie Curie
for
was
me,
Polish.
justice will be the first
Go on.
yes, sir. For me, justice should be in the my first choice.
Marie Curie.
No, I'm talking about the new question.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Okay. So you only have a first choice? I didn't understand.
No, I'm talking about, like, for me, my first choice should be justice, but because I think there's a competitive between justice and sustainability. But I think justice brings sustainability to, yeah.
Oh, well,
if we care about the future, we should care about justice.
Yeah, who is talking? I can't see who is talking. Who is talking?
Ali Shkera is talking.
Yeah,
okay,
me.
I can't see you for some reason. we do? Okay, it doesn't matter. That's
here.
fine.
Here.
Alish, yeah, Alish,
Here, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, I mean, if we care about the future, we should care about sustainability. But this concept, we can't achieve it without think about justice.
Oh, very good. I happen to agree completely with you. Justice is one of the fundamentals of sustainability. If you don't have justice, you can't have sustainability. You can't think about future generations if you're not thinking about the generations here. Yeah.
So
can I ask a question?
Yes. Rawan.
What do you mean by competitiveness?
Competitiveness is something that was very fashionable in 15 years ago. Cities were competing with each other for investment, and they're still competing, but we have come to the understanding that competitiveness between cities is actually not leading to good results.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about competing for investment.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, and not for nothing, it's the last one. And I can understand because it used to be very important, but since we are in a planet whose resources are being drained, and we are in a planet threatened by climate change and by growing inequality, competitiveness starts to sound a little bit stupid, actually. Justice and sustainability, rightly so. So I agree with you guys. They should be at the top. I think they are very important, and one depends on the other. And I think health has gone up. It used to be not so important, but we have realized that a healthy city is a good city for all. And I would say that health and justice are also very related. Resilience is an important thing, but resilience has a small problem. Sometimes sometimes, and I want to be very careful, please understand what I'm saying. Of course, it's important to be resilient, but some resilient people forget about justice. So I will give you an example. In my native country, Brazil, people say, oh, the poor, they're very resilient. Yes, very good. They are very resilient, but I don't think it's fair, right? That they are poor. And a few people, a few people are starting to say, well, I'm not resilient. I need to be cared for. And so resilience has a lot of critiques. Having said that, resilience is super important. Accessibility, so it's related to, accessibility is also related to justice and sustainability very much. Safety, and safety is very important. If you don't feel safe, what's the use of it? And heritage preservation, I know it goes to the bottom because, okay, you have to order it, but actually it's super important, right? It's about our identity and so on. Safety should be higher. Well, yes, and I have to say a lot of talk, we are talking very much about safety for children and for women in the city. I see a hand.
Yes, sir. This is Beleta speaking from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Hi.
A very nice presentation and very inspiring concept, and very powerful issue which touches everything of our life. So on this question, actually the things we put is like our perception, but practically what we are doing is competitiveness comes first. Competitiveness comes first because many of us compete for resources, for everything, even for governance. A lot of conflicts also associated to competitiveness. So in this sense, we say it, justice, yes, sustainability, yes, but practically what we are doing is competitiveness. This is
yeah,
just...
but the exercise is about imagining what should be right? I agree with you, Belete, and I think, of course, cities are competing for resources and people are competing for resources, but we have to be able to imagine a different future that is different from the present, really. We have to be able, and competitivity is starting to sound not right. So competing for everything is not. So what did Sarah say? That was hilarious. Okay, go on. So we have another hand.
Yes, I don't know if it's me.
Edgar.
I was just gonna talk about resilience, and I think someone, Esther said it, that the difference between resilient people and resilient spaces, for example. My view of this, the built environment, I think resilience should be very important. Because in my head, I picture it, let's say we want to get to, for lack of a better example, Mars. And we're building a truck. I'm just passing on this. We're building a truck that can drive from the Earth to Mars. So what are you gonna consider when you're building this truck? Not the people who are gonna be in the truck, but in order for the truck to take the journey, I think resilience should be like, because, and I'm coming from the perspective of like societies in Tanzania specifically, right? Where because of just the culture and the situation, the historical situation and the socio-ecological, socioeconomic situation that exists and sociological situation that exists, a resilient space would be more sustainable than a justice space. Because of just in terms of, for example, speaking, for example, of culture, it is difficult to change culture, but it is easy to, let's say, change infrastructure. Like you can say, we're going to put a playground here. It's easy to build a playground, but changing people's minds and saying women have the same right to play on this playground as same as men will take much longer to inject that mentality into people. So you create a playground that works, that can last the time until culture adapts to it. Because if you don't, like there's so many open places in Dar es Salaam, but when you go there, it's just men.
Edgar, I think you are. I think your argument is very good. I agree with you, but I'm talking. The problem with resilience a little bit is that there are several definitions, and some of them forget to include a few of the issues that you are mentioning, which are important. So some people will say, oh, it's the same with sustainability. It means everything and it means nothing. But I do think that there is a little bit of an issue with resilience in the way that it's talked about in many corners. Many people talk about the resilience of the cities, but we need to think about how citizens can be also resilient and sustainable, and how societies can go on. And I don't think that, and some people, they think that everybody has to be resilient. Guys, let me give the word to other people, Edgar, if you don't mind. That
no problem.
There is another person, Mohammed.
Yes. Yes. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. For me, I think I am from Bangladesh.
Yes.
So in here, local government is very weak, and central government is becoming very autocratic. So for me, I think justice and sustainability should be universally one or two. But in my perspective, in my country, like Dhaka, is a big city, but I think here the main challenges and should be priority should be for accessibility and safety for women and children and or the elderly. It's very hard. So it's I think this depends on culture and situation as well.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for reminding us that. I think Mohammed is completely right. We have to look at different realities, right? I would say that competitiveness is less important in Europe right now, but for a developing country, for example, that would be the reverse. I think safety in some places, especially safety for women, is a huge thing that we need to look at. This is just an exercise, right, to get us talking, and the chat is on fire, so that's wonderful. Let's go to the next one. What's your main concern as a professional? I don't know what you guys are. Most of you are architects and designers and planners, but what's your main concern? And here, again, I can tell you we are going to have disagreements because all these things are important. And it's just an exercise, right? Not many people are so worried about the client.
Okay, I have one question, Roberto, if it's possible.
Yes.
I am following very deeply your presentation and so on, and I really wonder, why is justice so fashionable right here and tonight? I mean, there are so many things in the city and so on, but why only justice?
Well,
justice is moving,
is it
moving
Sophia?
up. Yes.
Okay, Sophia, I have several answers to you. First, that's the topic of our autumn school, is justice. But
No,
so
that's okay. But right now, during this presentation, I just wonder why everyone are for justice. It's not a problem with the name of the school.
Look, I think that indeed cities have several problems. But I think justice is the cornerstone of a lot of problems. So justice is there is a word in English, is a pivotal concept. It's a concept that stays in the center when you are talking about things. And the reason I think that is that a lot of the problems that you mentioned in the city come from injustice, especially injustice in participation in how we govern the city. So I think I could have said also governance. I didn't put governance here, but which is the topic of the lecture, by the way. But for me, justice has a central role. I don't have any doubt about it. It's the building block, as Muhammad is saying, of planning. There are different conceptions of justice, and we all feel justice. We want justice, but we have different ways to get there, right? We know that.
That's correct.
But I think that the concept and as a building block is very important. I can talk more about this, but let's go on a little bit further because we need to finish in 5 minutes. So we don't have a lot of time. I appreciate your answers here. We are divided, society as a whole, the planet, justice, the environment. These things are so interrelated, it's impossible. Maybe the people who say the planet, they are thinking about justice as well. And if you talk about the planet, you're also talking about society, right? So, okay, let's go a bit further. How much influence should these groups have in our city? So I'm not talking about what's happening now, where investors and developers have a lot of power, but who should have more influence? Again, that's only an exercise for us to think about it, right? Justice is quite debatable, though. What may be justice to someone may be injustice to someone else. Indeed, but I think there are a few markers of justice that are there for everything. The working definition of justice that we work with at TU Delft is the fair distribution of burdens and benefits of development. The fair distribution of burdens and benefits of development. If you have development, there are lots of good consequences, but there are also some burdens like climate change, pollution, and so on. And these things are unevenly distributed. The poor and the vulnerable are disproportionately affected by these things, by the burdens, and they don't share into the benefits. So I hope this answers a little bit. Mohammed is talking about Bangladesh. Merely less than 50 planners are at work. Oh my God! So we need more planners in Bangladesh, which is maybe it's a small country in territory, but it's a big country in population. Okay.
No, we have lots of planners are producing, but there's no scope for job actually.
There are no jobs, you mean?
Lots of planners are producing every year, but there is no scope because no governance, no local body, no planning system. Even there is no planning permission or permit required. Only need building permits only. No planning permits is required. So no private practice, no public sectors, but it's null.
So do you think there should be? Do you think there should be more planners, or let's leave society?
No, planners are lots of planners are here, but no job because the governance structure is different, and there is no planning things required. You know, anyone can build anywhere like this.
But what do you think? Should there be more jobs for planners?
Obviously, it should be like thousands and thousand planners.
Okay, okay. Okay, so you're saying that the problem of governance in Bangladesh is really acute, right? There is no. If I may,
Absolutely.
Mohammed, do you mean that there should be more government action in a positive way?
We're trying, but you know, it's very hard to penetrate. You know, so because we can show things in real. Engineers can build a bridge, and they can show these things, and mega projects are going on. And when mega projects are going on, and there are a lot of interest, you know, the political parties, and you know, they have interest, and because there's no governance and bribery and other corruption is, so they want to lucrative projects, not for governance, not for planning. Because if we are there, we will object. No, you can do that. You can do that. It's their priorities. So then, so they want quick projects and quick money, and to make money and corruption. That's the problem actually.
Yeah. Well, that's I suggest that we talk about corruption next time, because I think that's a whole talk about that. But guys, people are in the chat are asking why religious organizations should have influence in the cities. The truth is that religious organizations have in some countries a lot of power and influence cities, right? In other countries, they don't have any influence at all. So I can imagine that some people may think that they have a positive influence. I have to say that in the Netherlands, they don't have a lot of influence at all. But in Italy, for example, the Catholic Church is a big landowner, so they have a lot of influence in how things are governed, right? Okay, citizens, I think we agree there. Citizens should be in control. Architects and urban designers, because they know better. Or do they? Maybe they should work with the citizens. Universities, I think that's excellent. Civil society organizations. So remember my distinction. Civil society are citizens organized in NGOs, clubs, and associations. And citizens are individuals. We are all citizens, I hope. Investors, of course, developers, and finally, last but not least, religious organizations. Do you guys want, can we do one more question and then we finish? Or do you want to leave? One more?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, one more. Let's go.
Roberto, can I ask?
Edgar, go on.
In the previous example you gave, I thought it was pretty interesting. In the previous example you gave, I thought it was pretty interesting if that the statistics were actual people now in a room, like you have 25, let's say, people representing citizens, and they were designing a city. Like, do you think the result would be, like, what would the city be? Like, if each of this percentage, you imagine there were representatives like coming into a panel of a room to design a city.
I think it would be wonderful, to be honest. Citizens, they don't know how to design cities. And sometimes they don't see the big picture. They have to be kind of helped by architects and urban designers. I agree with that. But co-designing with citizens is amazing because they know how they live. They know what they need. And they know things that the planners and designers don't know. I think my Brazilian friends in the room will recognize that we in Brazil don't know how a large part of the population lives. And we are all middle-class people, so we don't know. And this might be true also for many of you. We don't know how the poor, the very poor live, and we need to learn from them. So I love your idea, Edgar. Actually, if we had 100 people and we had 26 citizens, and then 14% of societal organizations, that would be the best planning. I think. Maybe you can disagree.
Yeah, I think it might be interesting. I'm just worried that the investors and developers and architects might band up against the citizens, be like, we're going to build this high-rise anyway.
In your model, Edgar, we would have 9 developers, but they have a lot of economic power. So yeah, I'm not very sorry for them.
So my worry is they can group with investors, like convince investors, and then they take the 22 architects and urban developers, and then they design their own city and circumvent the citizens.
Okay. Anyway, yes, but I like your model. I will propose it. Jihad.
I think that citizens should be consulted. They are the ones who are living in the city, and they are the end users. So the makers, planners, even researchers should consult with them and should negotiate. How do you want the city to be? How would it affect you? And
it's for them, right? We are
yes,
planning and
yes,
designing
exactly.
for them.
Yes.
And okay, design profession. I very much agree with you. Design professionals should pay special attention to vulnerable groups, and I think there is a lot of agreement here. Oh, I'm very surprised. Generally, I don't get so much agreement, but indeed, I think we need to pay special attention to people who don't have a voice. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think that's how things should go. One more. Rank democracy in your country. So I know that democracy is a problem in many countries represented in this room. In most countries, by the way. Can you rank it in your country? This is not, I'm not trying to, you can answer truthfully because these answers are not registered anywhere. I don't know who is saying what. So I don't know, you can say whatever you want. I don't know who said what, right? It's not registered anywhere. Okay, we have a 3.9. Full mature democracy. We have a 3.9 average. That's not that bad, to be honest. 4. You see the numbers here? So this is the medium. All right, who said full mature democracy? Can you tell me where you are? Is there a below 0 option? Exactly. India is known to be the largest democracy in the world, but it's really differs. Yeah, it is the biggest democracy, let me tell you, of course. It has a few problems, right? That maybe, should be. Edgar, maybe we need a higher percentage of citizens. One designer can design a city, but one citizen may not speak for an entire city. Yeah, totally. I agree as well. So there is a difference of power. Okay, 3.8. I mean, I have to say this is more than I was expecting, but we have a lot of people who put 0, and some people are trying to put minus 0 and so on. The state of democracy in the world today is really a problem, guys, and we need to discuss that, because the state of democracy has a huge impact on the quality of our cities. I understand that many countries in this room don't have a good democracy, and we need to work for that. We need to work for better democracies. And I think we, as architects, designers, engineers, and so on, planners, we have a role in creating better democracies and creating better conditions for people to participate. Does anyone have an opinion on this? Anyone wants to say something? Okay. Yes?
Sir, I just want to know who put full mature democracy. I mean, which country?
Well, yes. Maybe somebody who is from...
You asked this question, but asked this question, but nobody answered.
Nobody answered. So people who answer full mature democracy, could you tell us? Maybe Anna, Spain?
Maybe Portuguese, someone from...
Well, Portugal has quite a
I
good
wrote
democracy.
7, so I don't know. Like, I think it shows like full mature democracies, but it's like I wrote like a 7. Because of course there is a solid democracy, but in some aspects it's not perfect. But well, we came from a dictatorship, and right now, like when there is elections, they are legal, and you have the freedom to say, like, freedom of voice. But there's in any case, there are some things that are still not perfect in terms like of equality, and actually with COVID, the poverty has started to rise. So even though it's a democratic country, we also have it's not
some problems.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's not perfect, but it's a pretty good democracy, I have to say.
Well, the politicians rob a lot of money, but I think that's common to literally all countries in the world. So yeah, it's very Mediterranean in that sense. Like politicians always try to get.
Let's talk about corruption next time. Kutlo, did you want to say something?
Yeah, like Anna said. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think we do not have like a perfect democracy, but then we are kind of working on it, because we've never had like a dictatorship kind of rule. We've never really struggled for anything really compared to other African countries. Like we have free.
What country are you from? What country are you from? I didn't get the country.
Botswana.
Botswana. Okay, cool.
Yes. So we have like free. We get most of our services freely, like education and healthcare and everything. And then we have like this exchange of. A ruler can only stay in office for like 4 years, and then we go to elections, and it has been smooth so far. Though we complain about transparency and a bit of corruption, but then I think so far we have our freedom and our safety. We do not complain much.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that. It's amazing. It's not many countries around the world don't have that. Why am I talking about this to a bunch of architects and designers and planners? It's because I think we really have to think about it in our profession, and we have a role, right? Making decision-making and governance more structured so citizens can participate, and that we can have not only better democracies, but better cities. If we have better democracies, it reminds me of what, what's her name? I forgot your name, from Palestine.
Rawan.
Rawan was telling us about the injustice of decision-making in Israel and so on. We can't have good cities without good democracies. With that, I really, I know there is a hand, but sorry, we really need to finish because it's late. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you all, let me give you, oh yes, there is even more people then. Don't forget to put your name there for the presence. And I'm very, very, very happy with the discussion, and I really super thankful. I am going to see you next week, when we have our last session. So that kind of okay, well, we've had enough. Let's have the last session, and then it's over, and then you have quite a lot of time to do the assignment. Don't worry about that. We will help you all along the way. And meanwhile, Ugo and we will put the presentations in the folder. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Roberto?
Yes.
Bye. Thank you.
I have a little question.
Bye.
If I want to ask you a general question, can I send you an email or Facebook? Or
Yeah,
how can I
send me an
reach you?
email. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Send me an
Thank
email.
you.
Okay.
Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Let me save the chat before I go. Safe chat. See you guys. Bye-bye.